Okay, so um, went in the store, used the little restroom, and now I'm back. I told y'all I was gonna review this video from Del Faye Testimonies. Okay, this is I was sentenced. I'm sorry, I was sentenced to 20 years for murk. I can't say that on YouTube. But then Jesus did this. Okay. So we're gonna play from. I'm about midpoint. I'm at no, that ain't mid. There's a lot of in this video, but I'm starting at minute marker 26:06. So let's listen.
Want to be a prey to that. My body would be. I would literally have to cry myself to sleep. So much pain. I'm crying out to God. Like, if you save me, why?
He's talking about being in pain in prison. Like he was going through so much pain and he's in prison. In prison, the worst place you want to be for some medical care cut. Look, they don't care at all, for real.
Why am I going through this? If you actually do love me like you say you do, why isn't this going away? Like, I was remembering, because I'm reading the word, of course, getting in my Bible. Certain things was coming to my mind that I'm asking God about. Like when he told Paul how many things he'll have to suffer for his name. So I was like, am I suffering for your name? Like, is this what it means to suffer for your name? God wasn't answering. He was quiet. So here I am, still got this charge. I'm telling people all about Jesus, yet I'm going through this in my body, and God isn't answering me. I don't hear his voice anymore like he spoke before. I'm thinking he left. Because in my mind, I computed.
Now, when you go back to watch the video, you find out that he was in in the streets and he ended up murking somebody by being in them streets. That street life activity leads to street life consequences, leads to prison or graves, right? All strategic, because that's where they want certain people to be, in prison or in graves. So that is kind of targeted towards certain communities, right? It's all strategic, but people like to deal with things piece by piece and feel like one aspect don't really deal with the other, but they all pieces connected. It's all masterminded together, right? So he ended up murking somebody and he was about to go before the judge. He was like, he didn't know what he had yet. So he was like, I just can't do this. Like, there's got to be a way out. So he had made this plan of how he was going to out himself. He was already finna go through it. And before, he was sitting on his bunk and he's like, there's got to be a different way. Like, literally, there got to be something else other than this. And that's when he said, God spoke to him and said, try me. Try me. And he said, he took God up on his offer and was like, okay, I'll try you. And this is, it's a lot. So go back and definitely watch it. It's over an hour. And I can't, put that all into this video. But go back and watch it.
I computed. If something's happening to you, then God has done it and he's not there. Like, if it's not being fixed, then he's not there. Like, I computed.
Now, what I used to feel, because I went through so many different things, and I would start feeling like I never doubted that God can do things. I just doubted that he would do it for me, that it's not in his will for me, right? He can do it. I know he can do it, but just not for me. He's not going to do it for me. That's the mindset I started taking on. Like when I would see all these prison wives and their husbands actually committed their crimes and they actually did this and did that and they got relief for their husbands, or their husbands had way less time and my husband's wrongfully convicted and he got way more time. And even those that are wrongfully convicted, they don't do all the stuff that I've done to free their husbands or their loved ones, and they get them free. Somebody just picks up their case but not me, not me. So I've seen God do it for everyone but me. That's the mentality I used to take on. I never doubted that God can do it. I just doubted that he would do it for me.
Like I compute it. If something's bad happening or something wrong is happening, then God is off doing something else and He allowed it to happen and He don't want no parts of it. That's what
I literally just thought I was cursed.
thought. Because I still didn't have any enough experience with Him. Like He was teaching me at the time. So I was complaining. I was complaining to God, crying, fussing. I probably called Him some names. I was still growing in my. I probably said some things to God that.
I know I've been complaining. You know when they say that song, I won't complain, girl. I ain't finna lie. I'ma try not to complain. I try not to complain, because being honest, I'm gonna complain, right? I'm trying not to, but I've complained.
And I can't remember one time where He spoke back. It was quiet. I wasn't used to that. I was used to Him. Good morning, how you doing? And talking to me, and we talking back. I'm reading the word, and He's speaking, revelating me.
Yeah.
To now, going through this, I don't hear nothing. I do realize something that was happening though. Without Him speaking, I realized that I was still able to have faith. Because I was looking back and I was even questioning myself one time. Man, it's like I'm reliving it, right? I can feel the emotion of it. I was asking myself, why haven't you stopped? I was asking myself that. Like,
Sorry if you
if
can
you're
hear my
upset
car
with God and God
in
is
my ear.
seemingly like has left, He saved you and you gone. He saved you and He's on to the next person to say, why haven't you stopped going so hard for Him? I was asking myself, why you still fasting and praying and worshiping God and preaching and ministering and leading people to Christ? Why you still going so hard? And I realized that in those moments when He wasn't speaking, it was like strangely taking me deeper in love with Him. Because I realized that in those moments when I hear His voice, it's fun, it's exciting, it brings joy. But then at times when He wasn't speaking, I was really seeing what I was made of in Him. If I'm really doing this for Him. And I was able to know that I'm doing it for Him. And it wasn't just a moment that happened and I'm just super excited and living on this euphoria and this high. Because right now I'm going through it. And even to this day, I still have those same complications in my body. The pain of it isn't there, but I still have it in my body. It's gotten better since then, but it's still there. And fast forward, when it was time to face the judge for my charge, I remember being behind the courtroom in the bullpen, right? They call it a bullpen because it's like, that's not the actual name of it, but think about it, bulls, like they're in this pen and they're all in there together, right? And it's like they're all waiting to be released. So they call it a bullpen because it's a bunch of animals, right? And people that's so-called vicious in one space.
So you see how he said it, animals, people that are so-called vicious. That's what I was saying. Like if you have any, they automatically, you're not. I know they tell you you're innocent until proven guilty, but anybody that dealt with the system knows it's the exact direct opposite. You're guilty until you find enough money to pay enough fees and this and that to legal representatives, or you do some other stuff, until you throw somebody else up under the bus. Until that, you'll be innocent, right? You're not. You're guilty until the shot in jail of being proven innocent. Not really innocent until proven guilty. And they already see you as that monster. They've painted you as that monster to the jury, and you're going to be viewed as that monster, and your family is going to be viewed as the supporter of this monster, right? So that's what he's saying. Like they already see you in that manner, bullpen, animals, reckless, just ready to tear people apart, when that could be some of the people. That is some of them. That's not everyone that sits in that defendant chair.
Waiting to be released. So I was in the bullpen.
And also, what made them a bull? What made them act like animals? What made them those vicious people? Was it not, like I said, it's all connected? Was it not strategic things done behind the scenes to create those pathways from school to prison pipelines and things like that? Was it not any of that played a hand in that person getting to that bullpen? and being vicious as a bull.
And I was like, God, whatever's gonna happen today, I just give you the rights to do it. I didn't want to lie about what happened. I was at the point in my walk where I wasn't gonna lie. I wasn't gonna make up some story and say a whole bunch of stuff. I told God that whatever I have to say, I'm just gonna tell the truth. And whatever your decision is, God, I'm good with that. And I got sentenced to 20 years. I come out of the
Now
courtroom.
that is miraculous. 20 years. Like, at this point, my husband, I've been fighting for his freedom. He's been wrongfully incarcerated for 22 years. And he won't be free until 2039. So we're a little bit past his halfway mark. I still fight for him daily, but if none of this don't work out, because it ain't worked out in 20 something plus years, he got the rest of that time to do. But my husband is there for an alleged attempted robbery. So for murking, like 20 years, like that's lightweight. Like, and that also is in the justice system. The justice system is not fair nor just. Like, how do you give somebody that murked less time than somebody that did this? That's because it's not on no type of. It's to the discretion of the judge. Really, it's in his hands. How he feel it. What he, you know, they're not really set to equality, within the system. So for him to get 20 years for murking, that literally is not that long of time, honestly. I mean, and I know I can say that because we've done the 22 years, but in all actuality, decades go by fast. Once that person going off to prison, decades do go fast. Now, 4 decades, I don't know how fast them go, but 2 decades. If my husband had 2 decades, baby, he would have been home 2 years ago. He wouldn't have missed either of our grandchildren's births. He would have been here for that. He's missed everything from our daughters, first step, first word, college graduation, high school graduation, kindergarten graduation, birth of our first grandchild, our granddaughter, and birth of our grandson now. Missed all of it. Missed my graduation. Missed everything in between. So 20 years, I would gladly run me them 20 years. Run them that 20 years. So I can be released from this and he can be released from this. And we go ahead and get to whatever we were supposed to be doing on this earth besides fighting this, BS system.
20 years. I come out of the courtroom. I say my little spiel with the judge. Because they ask you, do you have anything to say after they sentence you? I say my spiel. I go back to the jail. There was a pastor that was incarcerated. I know, right? A pastor being incarcerated. And when he saw me come back, he knew I went to
that part. Don't think you can't end up there. I don't care how good you think you are. Don't ever take that holier than thou. Sit up high and look down low and feel like, well, that's for those people. I could never. You'll be the first one in there. Those that think they are too good. This system is not fair nor just. You have a better chance of being wrongfully convicted than you do of winning the lottery. So we should care. Don't take on that mentality. Anybody, any of us can end up in there.
Court. When he saw me come back, he asked me, he was like, how much time did you get? How much?
And if you haven't, thank God. Thank God. It's the grace of God. It's the grace of God.
Because everybody at that time knew me for serving the Lord, right? They knew me for praising God. They knew me for being a witness for Jesus, even around the whole entire jail. So this pastor, he was on a whole nother tier. And he knew of me. So he said, what happened? And I told him. I said, I took 20 years. I took a plea deal. That's what I feel like God had told me to do.
If you accused in a crime, you better take the plea. You ain't got no money, you better take the plea. You ain't got a good lawyer, you better take the plea. Hey, take that shit from me. You take it to trial, to send you up Shit's Creek.
He was like, you sure? And I'm like, yeah. I said, because...
Disclaimer is not legal advice, but that's save your behind advice.
I was talking to my lawyer on the phone, and he asked me, like, did I want to take this plea deal or go to trial? At first, I told him I wanted to go to trial because I said I've been preaching and teaching the gospel to people for all these months. Now it's time for me to show the faith,
Rigged up trials.
to show that I believe God. And for me, doing that was...
I would think twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, 20 times before I think about taking a trial. Rethink it, because trials as well are not fair nor just.
On a trial.
My opinion.
But for some strange reason, my lawyer, he wasn't feeling that decision. He said, man, you can't go to trial. You can't go to trial. And I'm like, what's going on? Why are you saying that? He was like, please, you just cannot. You need to take this plea deal. You cannot go to trial. Now, it was weird because lawyers, they don't...
Now, I told you, they're going to try to get you to plea. That's all they really going to do. All them lawyers that's given to you, they only going to get you to plea. But in this case, I believe he was, because they'll let you go to trial because they know they already know what's going to happen. They already know. Like my husband's public defender told him that he was taking a 5% chance with his life. And when he finished that conversation and said, are you going to trial? My husband said, I can't take 17 years for something I did not do. He said, all right, kiss your daughter goodbye. They already know how that trial going to end up. It's you that be the deer in headlights that think that, because they told you that you have this right and that right. You believe in that stuff. So now, I wish it really was like that, but you believe in it and then you get caught like a deer in headlights when trial does not go fairly and justly like it should have, right? It's a willing and dealing session, like my opinion, but that's what it is. So for him to really care about him going to trial, that's like him trying to save him. Like, don't do that. That's like going in front of a squad. One of them, it's like jumping off it's like the worst. Like it's like watching the worst crash happen. Don't even go down that way. Please don't do it. And the lawyer could have just let him go, and then he would have been sentenced to what? He could have been sentenced to being outed himself. He could have been sentenced to life, because that's a good possibility of what you would have got for once convicted for something like this. And he's saying he actually did do it, so it would have been easy to convict him. So he was saying that the man was telling him, please don't go to trial, because once you go to trial, they're going to give you double the penalty. That's why my husband got 40 years. If they were only going to give him 17 years, which was also harsh and excessive, because he went to trial, and now they're mad that they had to pay for that trial that was not even really fair nor just, but now you got to pay. So another tacked on 23 years because you took this to trial. Well, you should have just took that plea. That's what they were basically doing, showing my husband, giving him, making him an example. Like, don't come against us. If we said, take this plea, you take this plea. But I think he was coming from another stance of knowing how the system worked and not really wanting to see this young guy go down that way and trying to warn him, please take that plea. I wish somebody had begged the jail out of my husband Marcello to just take the plea. 17 years, though he was 19, that sounded like a lifetime. But do you know my husband would have been home 7 years ago? He would have not only seen the birth of our grandchildren, but he also would have seen our daughter graduate high school and college. Like, literally, we raised our daughter through prison visits all over the state of Florida. Backwoods of Florida, since I was young, since I was 20, since he was 19, since my daughter was 9 months old. She jumping at a glass, thick glass, trying to get to her daddy. He would have been home in her late teens if he had took the plea. Now, when Jesus come back, like when is he coming home? Like, honestly, 2039, but that's a lifetime from now,
Don't get involved like that. They don't give their opinion, personal
because it
opinion.
doesn't matter
So
to
with
them.
that, he's putting himself
It's
on
a
the line for
job
giving
to
a
them.
personal opinion. But I guess it was something in him trying to convince me. I don't know if God was using him or not at the time.
Yeah,
But he wasn't a
God was
Christian.
using them.
But what he said to me, he
He
was like,
saved them from going to that trial. They.
hey, man, you've been such a witness to my life.
I
He said,
want. I was. I'm sorry. I keep cutting this off, but ain't that the whole purpose of why I'm reviewing the video, girls? I can cut off and chime in. Oh, okay, but I wanted to design this game, a board game called Trial, and I want to show you how much of a game it really is to a lot of these players. And your life is nothing more than a little piece, a little game piece. They don't care about the collateral damage with the family, your children. They playing music. They about to get me demonetized, girl. Why are you playing music in in my background like that? Okay, anyways. But it's a game. It really is. I mean, I wish people really knew the truth. And then when you try to tell them the truth, they first, most are gonna reject the truth. Me telling the truth about how it really is. They're gonna reject it. They're gonna call me stupid. They're gonna call me dumb. I just support criminals, and it'll never get out. Like, so this system stays in the malfunctioning state that it is because you can't get the truth out about it.
to my life. He said, I don't even pay nobody no attention when they tell me they gave their life to God, they're living for God, they're reading their Bible. He said, I don't pay no mind. He said, can you imagine how many people I serve who say that? He was like, but it's something different about you. And in my heart right now, I feel led to tell you that. So I was like, I don't know. So I had my mom on the phone, and I said, Mom, what you think? She said, whatever you feel like God is telling you, son, I stand by you. And she told the lawyer that. The lawyer went so far to say, call his dad. And I'm like, wait, something is happening on his phone.
He was trying to save his life. He was trying to save his life. So they honestly, they already know how the trial gonna go. So he already knew what the fate was in that trial. So for him to take that plea, he knew that was his way out.
This lawyer is risking everything to convince me, like, and I felt like it didn't have to do with money. It didn't have to do with anything. I just felt like something is up. I need to be paying attention to what he's saying. But I just said, I'm sorry, but I'm going to trial, man. I'm trusting God. Whatever God going to do, He going to do it this way.
That's the way we went through trial with my husband. 22 years later, 17 years left to go.
I hang the phone up. I run in my cell. I lay down on the floor, and I started crying. The moment I closed my eyes, I saw a picture of a ram when I closed my eyes. And I knew exactly what that meant from like reading the word, because that's what happened in the Bible. God used the ram so that Abraham wouldn't have to kill his son. Because it's a picture of Jesus being our substitute. And he told Abraham, he said, now I know you trust me. And those words rang in my head, now I know you trust me. I said, I ran back to the phone so fast. I was like, Mom, call the lawyer back. I know what God want me to do exactly. And she was like, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, yes, I'm fine. But call him back now. She called him back, no answer. I'm like, oh my gosh, call him again. No answer. I'm like, oh my gosh, call, Mom, please call back. Try
This
again.
man literally was
Call
right
back.
before trial.
He was like, Mr. Douglas? I was like, yes.
Wow.
He's like, man, I'm walking out of my office right now. I'm like, listen, I know exactly what I want to do. I heard from God. I said, I'm not going to trial. I'm taking a plea deal to 20 years. He was like, are you sure? I was like, yes, I'm positive. I heard God. So he was like, okay, praise God. So then, boom, he was so happy.
Praise God.
So I told the pastor that asked me, right, why I took the plea deal, and that's why.
Now, people, it sounds like a conflict because people be like, well, hold on, if you talking about your husband wrongfully convicted, and I review other people's wrongful conviction stories, and the first thing that they say is a person wrongfully convicted are definitely going to go to trial. They definitely are going to try to fight for themselves. But you go in believing that justice really exists. Like I got that song. I used to think that justice really exists. Now I see that it exists only for the rich. Yes, only for the rich. Like, girl, it ain't really for us. Just us ain't really for us. Like, for real. But so the plea is basically like how much of your life can you salvage? How much can you salvage out of this? It's like they got you in the bear trap. You in the trap. You're really not getting out of this. How much of your life can you get away with? And like the public defender explained to my husband, it's like you can't even say this on YouTube no more, but it's like the big C. And let's say I was your doctor and you had the big C, and I didn't advise you that if you didn't cut off your arm, that you would lose your life. And he was like, are you gonna take the plea? And he's like, no, I'm not taking a plea for something I didn't do. I cannot take 17 years for something I did not do. He said, listen to me, Marcello. Like, listen, Marcello. Listen, like, listen, Linda, listen. You have about a 5% chance of winning this, even though they had no evidence on it. None of the evidence line up because it's a fabricated crime. So you can't have evidence that lines up, right? All they got is people that they forced to testify and lie and conflict each other. That's what they have as their evidence. They got rid of the video surveillance. They don't have the weapon they claim Marcello had. They don't have the money Marcello was found with. Don't even line up to what they said was taken. The police had gave their sworn written statements back to amend and erase and correct so they could line up to Marcello. And it's so much saying that Marcello is innocent than even a shred saying that he's guilty, but yet he's still behind the bars, right? So you're in the bear trap. You're in the bear trap. And oh yeah, so he said, if I didn't tell you to cut your arm off, what type of doctor would I be? He said, I'm telling you, cut your arm off so that you can live. And then that's when he said, are you going to take the plea? He was like, no. He said, well, then kiss your daughter goodbye. And it was goodbye. It was goodbye. I mean, goodbye in freedom. You know, we stayed together through prison visits, over excessive calls, and just, it's been really hard, but we stayed together. But it was goodbye for a real relationship with your daughter on the outside in the free world, being there for her when she falls off her bike, being there for her to help with homework, that type of goodbye to your daughter, right? Yeah, the plea, I'm telling you, it's not a fair game you're playing.
So he was like, oh man. He was like, no, man, not you. You can't do 20 years, man, not you. And in
And
my
then
mind, I'm
now I'm
like,
like,
I ain't
20
know why.
years, 20 years ain't even, I mean, it's a long time when they sit you down. But even 10 years look like a short, like we refer to them as short timers, long timers, a short timer's wife. I'm a long timer's wife, a lifer's wife, or that's what we refer to ourselves. But at this point, I'm about to say anybody with 10 years is a short timer, 15 years a short timer. Like, and about to say 20 years is a short time. Like they was talking about, I reviewed, that's what I started my TikTok on. Last year they were talking about, what's that boy name? Because I don't even listen to their music. What's that boy name? Tory Lanez. They were saying his father and him were claiming that they were wrongfully convicted, and nobody can believe it. I believe it all day, every day. I don't know if he specifically is. I don't pass judgment on cases unless I know everything, because I know how they present just one side of the case and then delete all this other stuff. So I don't believe no case until I know the aspect myself, and then I make a sound decision on whether I believe they have enough evidence to even convict the person, right? So they're saying that he's wrongfully convicted, but I'm like, dang. But they saying that he was sentenced to like what, 19 years. I'm like, for real, for a wrongful conviction, 19 years. If you, I study wrongful conviction. Do you know the type of time they give you under wrongful convictions? It almost seems like you get way more time than other people. The longest wrongful conviction that I know of, Kevin Strickland, 42 years wrongfully convicted. Then you got people that they exonerate after their demise. They're gone, and then they go back and exonerate them. Like these be some long sentences, and he has 19. So though he's upset, I made a whole video about, wow, like you should be grateful and thankful to God that 19. Like wrongful convictions be some long sentences, and it will take you a good 10 years is the shortest wrongful conviction that I've seen overturned in 10 years. It's going to take you some decades. 15 years, still short. Valentino Dixon took him 27 years. He painted himself out of prison. That's what I was trying to do with my husband, paint my husband out of prison because I'm an artist. But it's some time. And even 22 years, if my husband get out tomorrow, it only took him 22 years to get out of his wrongful conviction. That's short time for a wrongful conviction because these things don't get overturned very easily or very often, right? Most time wrongfully convicted people just got to play out their sentences. But 19 years, like, God, by the time you even get to fighting in the court, it'll be almost your release date. But yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know how I side noted to that. I have a short memory too. I've been and went off on something and don't even remember why I went off on it.
You 20 years, man, not you.
Oh
And in my
yeah,
mind,
20
I'm like,
years.
I ain't nobody special,
I mean, it's a
man.
long time, but
You know,
you
I'm like,
get through
whatever
it.
God
You can
got,
get
this
through
what
it.
He got.
What I say now, if you have a release date, do you even know there's wrongfully convicted people that have been outed? They were on D row. Do you know how many wrongful convictions were on D row? So if you have an out date, even my husband sitting up here with this 2039 release date, I sat up and I said, I have to thank God. I have to thank God for these 40 years because he may not have had no out date. Oh.
So he walked out the room, and they had this glass, right, that you can see outside of the room, and he leaned up against the glass, and he came right back in like seconds, probably like 5 seconds, came right back in and said, the Lord just told me to tell you, you only gonna do 10 years. And I smiled, and I said, praise God.
Wow.
Because you don't want to just, deny.
Now, let me tell you this. I'm sorry, interruption again. But 10 years. So people ask me, how did I stay with my husband through 22 years of him being in prison, me being out here, and raising our daughter through prison visit? How in the jail could you do that? Well, it's because when my husband was convicted, I ran outside, laid in the street. Honestly, they took my heart, and I didn't see nothing else to really be here on this earth for. Honestly, at that time, 20 years old, just gave birth to my daughter, and you took the love of my life. You took my husband. You took my soulmate. You took, and now what do I have left? Like literally, that's where I was at in my mind at 20 years old. And it wasn't until I seen his lawyer walked out that courtroom, and I said, I got up. It woke me up out the street, and I walked towards him, and he was like, "Do you know why he got sentenced?" I said, "Yeah, because he's black." And he said, "Yeah, honestly, that's why he got sentenced to that long of a time." But I'm sorry, trying to hold in a calm. But he was like, I guess I got choked by all that talking. But he was like, don't worry, he'll only do about 10 years. And then he said, oh, you're going to have to find a lawyer that's going to fight for his life. You're going to have to appeal. And ever since that day, I have been trying my best to find a lawyer. I ain't never found a lawyer. I ain't never gained lawyer money, no matter what I tried to do. But he said, he only have to do about 10 years. He'll only do about 10 years. Don't worry. And I held on to that. Though 10 years was hard to get through, we got through the 10 years. And I called back in 11 years, and I'm like, okay, so what's up? You said he only had to do about 10 years. What's going on? And that's when they pulled the rug from under me and said, no, 40 means 40. He has to do the 40 years. Of course, with his game time, which Florida has, in any other state, Marcello would have had less time because they have 65% time served, and Florida has 85% time served. So 10 years is what made me hold on. But now they're telling him, you're only going to get about 10 years. What he prophesied that God told him to tell this guy. But then it lines up. Just listen to the story.
So I said, praise God, I received that. Praise God. Thank you, man. Thank you. So
he didn't
I went back, and like I said, it's the 20 years.
20 years.
The day comes when I have to go, and
now this is where the story gets crazy.
Where I'm going to spend my time.
I ain't gonna say nothing else.
And there's a lady walking with me. She has my paperwork in her hand, and she looks at me, and she looks at the paperwork. She looks at me, and she looks at the paperwork with this strange face. She shook her head, sucked her teeth, smacked her teeth. She said, "Shh, y'all kids just don't respect life." And I just didn't say anything. Just kept walking. Thought it was kind of rude for her to just blurt out, but I mean, I know my charge. I know what I was, guilty of, so I just took it.
Even if you're guilty or not guilty, you're gonna be judged by those charges.
And then she say, "Why you don't have a lot of time? If you took somebody's life, what you told on somebody? Did you snitch?" Like, she was really rude. And I looked at her and said, "What do you mean, a lot of time?" I said, 20 years is a lot of time.
And what he's referring to is because people that turn on other people usually get dropped from the case, or they get lightweight time, because they basically, I say it's like a hot potato. They got the hot potato off of them, and now it's on you. Even if they were the one that committed the crime, they can get less time just by, doing that. That's why I say it's more of a will and deal. It ain't really about keeping the neighborhood safe, because if you letting the person go because they told on somebody that didn't do it, how did you keep your neighborhood safe? This is why we still got all this crime and stuff going on in these streets. But yet, okay.
Said, "You don't have 20 years. She said, "You don't know how much time you got?" I'm like, "Yeah, 20 years. And she said,
That's still
I can't show you, but it don't say that on it.
20 years is still
and I said,
"You
gonna have to show me if something else if it say something else on that paper." So she took the paper, because it has everybody, they have their name and their charge and all of that stuff on it. She took the paper, my name was maybe this far from the sheet. She folded it this way, then she took the bottom half and folded it this way, so it could just show my name. It said Raynard Duggar. It said my charge, 1st-degree murder, and then in the last right-hand corner, it said 10 YRS. So I was like, I just kept it to myself.
Wow.
I leave that jail. I go to, because that was the processing center. I leave the processing center. I go to where I'm actually going to do my time.
This story gets better. Go watch the video. I'm going to do a part 2. I'm going to review a little bit more of that part, but this video is getting long. But the paperwork already, this is where I'm amazed. The paperwork already reflected what God said. Are you kidding me? And he just was sentenced. The judge just signed off on 20 years. But God said 10 years. Like, how did the paperwork already reflect that? Wow. All right, guys. Here's your girl Cadillac.